Well, Veronica, the big question we're looking to get answers to right now are the identities of some of the people who were arrested earlier this morning in those FBI raids. And like Gino said, we're expecting some arraignments for one or a couple of...
At 6:47 a.m. on a frozen March morning, federal authorities held a closed-door briefing inside the Minneapolis FBI field office and announced what they called the most sophisticated cartel infiltration ever uncovered in the American Midwest. They had just dismantled a drug empire built not in the shadows of poverty, but beneath the marble floors of million-dollar mansions owned by some of the city's most respected legal minds. The numbers were staggering: 3.1 tons of narcotics seized, 112 arrests across 4 states, over $87 million in laundered cash recovered from shell accounts registered to law firms, immigration consultancies, and non-profit advocacy groups. And at the center of it all, a tunnel, a real underground drug tunnel running beneath an elite attorney's estate in one of Minneapolis's wealthiest neighborhoods, connecting directly to cartel distribution networks spanning from the Mexican border to the Canadian frontier. This is not a story about street-level dealers. This is about power dressed in tailored suits, corruption hidden behind legal briefcases, and a cartel operation commanded by someone the public trusted to protect the vulnerable. You think you know how deep corruption goes? You have no idea. And what comes next is worse. It started at 4:32 a.m., 48 hours before that briefing, in the Kenwood district of Minneapolis. The streets were silent. Frost clung to the windows of historic mansions. A thin layer of fog rolled across empty boulevards lit only by vintage street lamps. No one was awake to see the convoy. 12 black SUVs, no headlights, rolling in perfect formation. Inside were over 80 federal agents. FBI, DIA, ICE, SWAT units in full tactical gear. They had been planning this operation for 11 months, and tonight they were going to tear open the heart of a network that had turned Minnesota into a narcotics highway for one of the most dangerous trafficking organizations operating on U.S. soil. The target was a $4.2 million estate owned by a man named Victor Aldrin, a 49-year-old immigration attorney with a flawless public reputation. Aldrin had spent 2 decades representing asylum seekers, migrant families, and refugees. He had been featured in legal journals. He had testified before state legislative committees on immigration reform. He was untouchable. Or so it seemed. Because beneath his pristine colonial-style mansion, federal investigators had discovered something that would rewrite everything the city thought it knew about organized crime. A tunnel, 22 feet below ground, reinforced with steel beams and ventilation systems, running 340 yards from Aldrin's basement to a commercial warehouse registered under a fake logistics company. And through that tunnel, for the past 3 years, the cartel had been moving cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine, and human trafficking victims in volumes that would make your blood run cold. At exactly 4:37 a.m., the SWAT teams moved. Flashbangs shattered the early morning silence. The front doors of Aldrin's mansion exploded inward. Agents in black masks poured through every entry point like a flood. Upstairs, Aldrin tried to run. He made it to the master bedroom before 2 FBI agents tackled him to the ground. Downstairs, DIA agents found the entrance to the tunnel hidden behind a wine cellar wall that slid open on hydraulic rails. The tunnel was lit, active, warm air rising from below, and inside they found what nightmares are made of. Duffel bags stacked floor to ceiling, loaded with bricks of cocaine and methamphetamine. Industrial scales, vacuum sealers, ledgers written in code, burner phones by the dozen, and in a side chamber, steel cages. Empty now, but the chains were still warm. This was not just a drug tunnel. It was a migrant smuggling route, a human trafficking corridor, a fully operational cartel infrastructure hidden beneath one of the most expensive zip codes in the state. Simultaneously, other teams hit 6 additional locations across Minneapolis and St. Paul. A luxury condo in the North Loop used as a fentanyl pill pressing facility. Agents found 2.1 million fentanyl pills ready for distribution, each one stamped with a cartel logo invisible to the naked eye, but clear under ultraviolet light. A commercial kitchen in northeast Minneapolis that was listed as a catering business but was actually a methamphetamine super lab producing up to 200 pounds per week. A storage unit complex in Bloomington where agents discovered $12 million in cash vacuum-sealed inside furniture and appliances scheduled for shipment to Mexico. A law office in downtown Minneapolis where 4 junior attorneys were found shredding documents while encrypted hard drives were being destroyed in a barrel fire on the roof. And a sprawling estate in Edina where agents arrested 2 former immigration judges who had been receiving monthly payments of $40,000 each to delay deportation cases and release specific detainees directly into cartel custody. By sunrise, the FBI had seized over 4,100 kilograms of cocaine, 620 kilograms of methamphetamine, 890 kilograms of heroin, and enough fentanyl to kill the entire population of Minnesota 3 times over. But the drugs were just the beginning, because inside Victor Aldrin's home office, agents found something far more dangerous: a laptop, encrypted, locked behind military-grade security. And when federal cyber forensic teams finally cracked it open, they realized they were not looking at a local drug ring. They were staring at a blueprint for the complete takeover of the American Midwest. 11 hours later, inside a secure FBI cyber lab in downtown Minneapolis, analysts were still trying to process what they were seeing. The laptop contained over 16,000 files, spreadsheets, contracts, offshore banking transactions, encrypted communication logs, shipping manifests, border crossing schedules, and at the center of it all, a master plan with a code name that sent chills through every agent in the room: Operation Iron Prairie. This was not a drug smuggling operation. This was a full-scale infrastructure takeover designed to turn the state of Minnesota into the primary narcotics distribution hub for the entire northern United States. The network was massive. Victor Aldrin was not just a lawyer. He was the chief legal strategist and logistics commander for a fictional transnational trafficking cartel with roots in Mexico, operational cells across Central America, and distribution arms reaching into Canada. His law firm was a front. His immigration practice was a recruitment pipeline. Every asylum case he won, every migrant he helped settle, every family he represented, it was all part of a sophisticated system to embed cartel operatives into American communities under the cover of legal protection. The financial web was staggering. Aldrin had created 18 shell companies, fake logistics firms, sham nonprofit organizations that claimed to provide legal aid to refugees but were actually laundering cartel profits, a network of restaurant franchises across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and the Dakotas that functioned as cash processing centers, agricultural supply companies that used farm equipment shipments to smuggle narcotics inland from the southern border, even a green energy consulting firm that received state grants to install solar panels on rural properties, which were actually being used as cartel safe houses and drug storage facilities. The money flowed like water. Over $340 million had been moved through these entities in the past 18 months alone. Transfers routed through banks in Panama, the Cayman Islands, Singapore, and Luxembourg. Every transaction clean on paper, every contract legally airtight, and every single one of them signed off by Victor Aldrin or one of his trusted partners. But here is where it gets darker. Aldrin's digital signature was not just on financial documents. It was on operational orders, instructions for drug tunnel construction, approval codes for fentanyl pill production quotas, scheduling documents for human trafficking convoys moving through Minneapolis on their way to Canadian border crossings, and worst of all, encrypted authorization keys linked directly to migrant smuggling routes that used asylum seekers as human shields to move narcotics shipments past ICE checkpoints. This was not corruption. This was command-level collusion. This was a licensed attorney, a man who swore an oath to uphold the law, deliberately engineering a system to exploit the most vulnerable people on Earth while flooding American streets with poison. Aldrin had turned his legal expertise into a weapon. And he had turned Minnesota into a cartel fortress. The analysts kept digging, and what they found in the final encrypted folder made it clear that this operation was just beginning. Because Victor Aldrin was not working alone at 5:14 a.m. The next morning, inside a joint federal command center established in a secure DEAS facility outside Minneapolis, over 40 federal officials stood in front of a massive digital map of the Midwest. The screen was covered in red markers. Each one represented a location tied to Operation Iron Prairie, drug super labs, storage warehouses, cartel safe houses, tunnel entry points, human trafficking transit stations, migrant smuggling hubs. The markers stretched across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, and into Illinois and Michigan. This was not a city problem. This was a regional invasion, and it required a regional response. The mission was given a name, Operation Shattered Veil. The objective was total eradication. Over 1,200 federal agents were mobilized. FBI, DIA, ICE, ATF, U.S. Marshals, dozens of SWAT teams, Black Hawk helicopters, armored tactical units, K-9 units trained to detect fentanyl, digital forensic teams, financial crimes investigators, even elements of the U.S. Army's Northern Command were placed on standby to provide air surveillance and logistics support using drones and reconnaissance aircraft. This was not a raid. This was a siege. At exactly 6:00 a.m., the operation launched. In Minneapolis, agents stormed a 3-story drug fortress in the Phillips neighborhood, where cartel enforcers had fortified an entire apartment building. Flashbangs lit up every floor. Gunfire echoed through the halls. Suspects tried to escape through roof access but were met by agents rappelling from helicopters. Inside, they found a fentanyl pill pressing operation capable of producing 50,000 pills per day, along with $3.8 million in cash and enough precursor chemicals to poison a city. In St. Cloud, a rural farmhouse that appeared abandoned was breached by a joint DIA and ICE team. Beneath the barn, they found a hidden methamphetamine super lab built inside a series of interconnected shipping containers buried underground. The lab was active, cooking, venting toxic fumes through a disguised irrigation system. Agents seized over 800 pounds of crystal meth and arrested 11 cartel members, including 2 chemists flown in from Sinaloa. In Duluth, near the Canadian border, agents raided a warehouse registered to a fake shipping company. Inside, they found a fleet of refrigerated trucks loaded with false compartments. Hidden behind frozen food shipments were 1,400 kilograms of cocaine and 17 migrants locked inside airtight smuggling chambers. The drivers were arrested, the migrants were rescued, and the routes were shut down. In Wisconsin, a convoy of cartel vehicles was intercepted on Highway 53 just south of Superior. ICE agents, backed by state police and DEAS tactical units, boxed in the convoy using armored vehicles and spike strips. The suspects tried to run. They didn't make it 50 yards. Inside the trucks, agents found heroin, methamphetamine, and over $6 million in cash wrapped in plastic and hidden inside engine compartments. Across Iowa, agents hit 4 separate cartel stash houses in Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, and Sioux City. Each location was a node in the distribution network, each one controlled by operatives who reported directly to Victor Aldrin. They seized drugs, guns, encrypted phones, server farms that stored every transaction, every shipment, every name. And in North Dakota, near the tiny border town of Pembina, agents discovered another tunnel. This one was still under construction, 70 feet deep, reinforced with concrete. Designed to run beneath the U.S.-Canada border and connect to a cartel-controlled warehouse on the Canadian side. Construction equipment was still on site. Engineers were arrested on the spot, and the tunnel was collapsed using controlled explosives. By noon, the map had changed. Red markers were turning blue, locations secured, suspects in custody, drugs and cash seized. The numbers kept climbing. 3.1 tons of narcotics total, 112 arrests, over $87 million in cash and assets frozen, weapons, vehicles, properties, communication networks dismantled, and it was not just cartel members being dragged out in handcuffs, it was lawyers, businessmen, city contractors, and officials who swore to serve the people. The underworld took more damage in 6 hours than it had in the last 6 years. But the real shock was still coming. Back in the command center, federal investigators were combing through the servers seized from Aldrin's operations, and what they found was a betrayal so deep it made even seasoned agents feel sick. The cartel had not just infiltrated Minnesota's streets, it had infiltrated the system. 23 law enforcement officers across 5 states were on the cartel payroll. Patrol sergeants, border agents, county deputies, even 2 ICE supervisors. They had been receiving monthly payments ranging from $15,000 to $60,000 each, paid through encrypted cryptocurrency wallets that were nearly impossible to trace. Their job was simple: look the other way. The investigators pulled up the logs. They saw it all. Patrol grids falsified to create coverage gaps during cartel convoy movements. Border checkpoints that went offline for maintenance exactly when smuggling operations were scheduled. Internal communications leaked to cartel handlers hours before federal raids. Evidence logs altered, arrest records buried, witnesses intimidated. It was not just a few bad apples. It was a parallel enforcement system, a second chain of command that answered not to the law, but to Victor Aldrin and the cartel he served. One of the most painful moments came when agents reviewed body cam footage from an honest state trooper who had pulled over a suspicious truck on Interstate 94 near Fargo. The truck matched a cartel profile. The trooper called for backup, and the backup that arrived was a sergeant who was on the cartel payroll. The sergeant told the trooper to let the truck go, said it was a waste of time. The trooper refused. The sergeant made a phone call. 20 minutes later, the trooper was pulled off the stop by his own captain and reassigned to desk duty. The truck drove away. Inside that truck, investigators now knew were 340 kilograms of fentanyl headed for distribution in Minneapolis. That fentanyl went on to kill at least 19 people in the following 2 weeks. The trooper did his job. The system betrayed him, and people died because of it. Federal agents moved quickly. They arrested the corrupt officers in coordinated dawn raids. No warnings, no leaks. They were taken into custody in their homes, in their patrol cars, at their desks. The badge does not make you immune. It makes your betrayal unforgivable. And the system that allowed this to happen, the system that enabled a cartel to buy its way into law enforcement and government, that system was about to be rebuilt from the ground up. But the full picture was still coming into focus, because Victor Aldrin's plan was not just about Minnesota, it was about the entire country. The investigators zoomed out. They pulled up a continental logistics map that had been hidden in Aldrin's encrypted files. And the scale of what they were seeing was almost impossible to comprehend. Operation Iron Prairie was designed to turn the Midwest into the primary narcotics pipeline for the northern United States and Canada. The network used a web of legitimate businesses to move drugs without raising suspicion. Trucking companies contracted to haul agricultural products from the southern border to the northern plains. Every third truck carried hidden narcotics. Shipping manifests were digitally altered in real time using software designed by a tech firm that Aldrin secretly owned. Way stations along major interstate routes were scheduled for maintenance during convoy windows, ensuring trucks never had to stop. And when they did stop, the inspectors on duty were on the payroll. The network moved an estimated 4.5 tons of narcotics per week. That is over 230 tons per year. Cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, fentanyl, all flowing through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas, then distributed east to Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland, west to Denver and Seattle, and north across the Canadian border into Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. Migrant smuggling operations were layered on top of the drug routes. Asylum seekers and undocumented migrants were used as cover. Convoys transporting people appeared to be humanitarian operations. But hidden inside the same vehicles were narcotics and cash. If law enforcement stopped a truck, they found families. They found children. And they let the truck go. It was diabolical, it was efficient, and it was working. The final piece of the puzzle came from a file labeled Phase 3. The investigators opened it, and what they read made them realize that everything they had dismantled so far was just the foundation. Phase 3 was Victor Aldrin's endgame. He was not content to run a smuggling operation. He wanted to build a shadow government. The plan detailed how cartel operatives would be placed into local government positions across Minnesota and neighboring states. City council seats, school boards, zoning commissions, judges, prosecutors. The goal was to create legal immunity for cartel operations at every level, to pass ordinances that restricted federal enforcement, to control land use and development so that cartel properties could never be seized, to appoint judges who would dismiss cases and release operatives, to turn entire counties into cartel-controlled territories where federal law could not reach. This was not infiltration. This was colonization. And if Phase 3 had succeeded, the Midwest would have become a permanent narcotics empire operating in plain sight, shielded by the very laws meant to protect the people. The system was not broken, it was being redesigned. And Victor Aldrin was the architect. But here is the thing about power. It does not always arrive with violence and chaos. Sometimes it comes in a tailored suit. Sometimes it speaks with the language of justice and compassion. Sometimes it hides behind the very institutions we are taught to trust. And that is when it is most dangerous. Because you do not see it coming until it is already inside. Victor Aldrin understood that. He knew that no one would suspect an immigration attorney, a man who fought for the vulnerable, of commanding a drug empire. He knew that his reputation was his shield, and he used it for years. Until the FBI tore that shield apart and dragged the truth into the light. The cost of this operation, the real cost, cannot be measured in tons of drugs or millions of dollars. It is measured in lives. In the 19-year-old kid in St. Paul, who bought what he thought was a painkiller and died of fentanyl poisoning on his bedroom floor. In the mother in Minneapolis, who lost 2 sons to heroin addiction while the courts released their dealer 5 times because a judge was on the cartel payroll. In the migrant families who paid everything they had for safe passage. only to be locked in cages beneath a mansion and trafficked like cargo. In the neighborhoods that became war zones. In the families that were shattered. In the officers who did their jobs and were punished for it while their corrupt colleagues got rich. That is the cost. And it is unforgivable. This story is a warning. It is a reminder that organized crime does not just exist in the cartels of Mexico or the gangs of South America. It exists here, in our cities, in our courts, in our police departments, and it wears a mask of legitimacy until someone has the courage to rip it off. The FBI, the D, ICE, and every honest agent who participated in Operation Shattered Veil did exactly that. They pulled back the curtain. They exposed the rot, and they proved that no one, no matter how powerful, no matter how respected, is above the law. If you are still watching this, tap like so more people see this story. Share it. Because the public needs to know that corruption like this does not just happen in movies. It happens in real life. And silence is what allows it to thrive. Comment expose if you want stories like this dragged into the light, because power fears exposure more than anything else. The warning it carries is very real. Corruption does not announce itself. It does not wear a mask and carry a weapon. It wears a suit. It shakes your hand. And it smiles while it destroys everything you thought was safe. Victor Aldrin is behind bars. His network is dismantled. His empire is ash. But the fight is not over. Because for every operation like this that gets exposed, there are others still operating in the shadows, still moving drugs, still trafficking people, still buying a fish, still building their empires one bribe, one shipment, one life at a time. The question is not whether it is happening. The question is whether we are willing to see it and whether we are willing to stop it. That is the real story. And that is why you need to keep watching, keep asking questions, and keep demanding the truth. Because the moment we stop paying attention is the moment they win.